Imagine a family so powerful that they control the fate of a nation's economy, whose influence stretches from the highest political offices to the tech in your pocket. A dynasty built on ambition, ruthless decisions, and unthinkable wealth. But behind the shiny screens and sleek gadgets lies a tangled web of family feuds, scandalous secrets, and courtroom drama. This is the untold story of the Samsung family, a saga of power and betrayal, of a family's struggle to control a business empire worth hundreds of billions, while battling enemies on all sides, even from within their own bloodline. This story has it all: corruption, power plays, courtroom battles, and a fight for survival at the very top of the global tech game. This is the story of Samsung, like you've never heard before. The story of the Samsung family is one filled with ambition, power, controversy, and the relentless pursuit of success. At its core, the tale of Samsung is not just about a company, it's about a family whose name has become synonymous with South Korea's economic miracle. It's a story of a dynasty that built one of the world's largest and most powerful conglomerates, yet has been beset by internal struggles, legal battles, and intense public scrutiny. Our journey begins in the early 20th century, in the small town of Gwaryong, Korea, where Lee Byung-chul, the founder of Samsung, was born in 1910. He came from a wealthy family that owned large tracts of land. But Byung-chul was not content with merely living off the family fortune. He had an entrepreneurial spirit and a desire to make a mark on the world. In 1938, with just 30,000 won, around 27 USD at the time, he founded Samsung Sangho, a small trading company in Daegu. Initially, Samsung focused on trading goods such as dried fish, locally grown groceries, and noodles, but Byung-chul had bigger dreams. As Korea endured Japanese occupation and later the ravages of the Korean War, Byung-chul seized every opportunity to grow his business. He diversified into sugar refining, textiles, and insurance, all the while positioning Samsung as a vital player in Korea's rebuilding efforts. By the 1960s, Samsung had entered the electronics industry, a decision that would change the course of the company and the family forever. Byung-chul had the foresight to see the potential of technology and electronics long before it became the driving force of the global economy. He believed that if Samsung could become a leader in technology, it would not only prosper, but also play a pivotal role in South Korea's emergence as an industrial powerhouse. Lee Byung-chul was not just a shrewd businessman, he was a visionary. Under his leadership, Samsung expanded rapidly, diversifying into a range of sectors from shipbuilding to construction, from chemicals to semiconductors. He had an almost obsessive focus on growth, often saying that Samsung would only survive if it was constantly moving forward. However, with success came challenges. The company's rapid expansion required significant capital, and Byung-chul often found himself at odds with the government, particularly during the military dictatorship of Park Chung-hee in the 1960s and 70s. Despite these tensions, Samsung flourished, benefiting from the government's push for rapid industrialization and export-led growth. By the 1980s, Samsung had become a conglomerate, or chaebol, as they are known in Korea, with a vast network of affiliated companies. But as the company grew, so did the internal pressures within the family. Lee Byung-chul had 3 sons and 5 daughters, and questions about succession began to loom large. Who would take over the empire he had built? The succession issue came to the forefront when Lee Byung-chul's eldest son, Lee Meng-hee, was publicly ousted from the company in the 1970s due to a scandal involving smuggling. This created a rift in the family and led to a bitter struggle over who would inherit the Samsung legacy. In a surprising move, Lee Byung-chul chose his 3rd son, Lee Kun-hee, to be his successor. This decision set the stage for a fierce rivalry between Lee Kun-hee and his older brother, Mang-hee. Lee Kun-hee took over as chairman of Samsung in 1987 after his father passed away. He was known for his quiet demeanor, but his leadership style would soon prove to be anything but gentle. Determined to transform Samsung from a domestic player into a global powerhouse, Kun-hee embarked on a series of radical changes. In 1993, he famously convened a meeting with top Samsung executives in Frankfurt, Germany, where he delivered a speech that has since become legendary in the corporate world. "Change everything except your wife and children," he told them. This bold declaration marked the beginning of what is now known as the New Management Initiative. Kun-hee demanded a complete overhaul of the company's culture, quality standards, and business practices. He stressed innovation, excellence, and a relentless pursuit of perfection. Samsung's employees were encouraged to discard the old ways of doing things and adopt a mindset focused on global competition. The results were astounding. Within a decade, Samsung had become a global leader in semiconductors, flat panel displays, and mobile phones. However, the success came at a cost. The New Management Initiative was ruthless. It involved layoffs, restructuring, and an intense pressure to perform. Employees were pushed to their limits, and many complained of a culture of fear. This pressure cooker environment led to a series of crises, both within the company and the family. While Samsung was climbing the ranks in the global market, Lee Kun-hee was facing his own personal battles. His leadership style, while effective in achieving business goals, was criticized for being autocratic. This was compounded by numerous legal troubles that dogged him and his family. In 1996, Lee Kun-hee was convicted of bribing former South Korean President Roh Tae-woo. He was given a 2-year suspended sentence, but the scandal tainted Samsung's image and highlighted the close, often corrupt ties between the chaebols and the government. This wasn't the last of his legal troubles. In 2008, he was convicted again, this time for tax evasion and breach of trust. Despite these convictions, Lee Kun-hee remained at the helm of Samsung, protected by his vast influence and the importance of Samsung to the South Korean economy. Yet, the internal struggles continued. Kun-hee's health began to deteriorate, and questions about who would succeed him became more pressing. Unlike his father, Kun-hee had only one son, Lee Jae-yong, who was being groomed to take over. However, Lee Jae-yong, known in the West as J.Y. Lee, faced his own set of challenges. J.Y. Lee was educated in the United States and brought a more modern, global perspective to the company. But he also inherited the weight of his family's legacy, including its controversies and legal troubles. In 2014, Lee Kun-hee suffered a heart attack that left him incapacitated. J.Y. Lee began to take on more responsibilities, effectively becoming the de facto head of Samsung. But as he stepped into his father's shoes, he was immediately met with a series of crises. The most significant of these was the Crown Prince scandal that erupted in 2017 when J.Y. Lee was arrested on charges of bribery, embezzlement, and perjury. The scandal was part of a larger investigation into former South Korean President Park Geun-hye, who was accused of receiving bribes from several chaebols, including Samsung. J.Y. Lee was accused of offering millions of dollars in bribes to a confidant of Park Geun-hye in exchange for government support for a controversial merger of 2 Samsung affiliates, which would help him solidify his control over the conglomerate. The arrest of J.Y. Lee marked a dramatic turn for Samsung and the Lee family. For the first time, the head of South Korea's largest and most powerful conglomerate was facing the real possibility of a lengthy prison sentence. The trial was highly publicized, and the South Korean public watched closely as details of the corruption scandal unfolded. In 2017, J.Y. Lee was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, in a move that surprised many, he was released in 2018 after serving just 1 year, when an appeals court suspended his sentence. The court's decision was met with public outrage, and it fueled ongoing debates about the influence of the chaebols in South Korea and their relationship with the government and judiciary. Despite his legal troubles, J.Y. Lee continued to run Samsung, but the company faced a new set of challenges. The global market was becoming increasingly competitive, and Samsung had to navigate tensions with its main rival, Apple, as well as challenges from Chinese companies like Huawei and Xiaomi. Moreover, the company had to deal with internal issues, including labor disputes, accusations of union busting, and concerns about the health and safety conditions at its factories. In 2020, just as Samsung was dealing with the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, Lee Kun-hee passed away, marking the end of an era. His death raised more questions about the future of the company and the family's control over it. In the wake of his passing, J.Y. Lee publicly apologized for the scandals that had rocked the company and pledged to reform Samsung's governance practices, promising that there would be no hereditary succession in leadership. However, the challenges were far from over. In 2021, J.Y. Lee was again convicted on bribery charges related to the 2017 scandal and was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. This time, he served several months before being released on parole, a decision that reignited debates about the rule of law in South Korea and the privileged status of the chaebols. The struggles of the Samsung family are emblematic of the broader issues facing South Korea's corporate giants. The chaebols have been instrumental in driving the country's economic growth, but they have also been criticized for their opaque governance, corruption, and close ties to political power. The Samsung family's story is a microcosm of this larger narrative, reflecting both the incredible achievements and the deep flaws of the system. Today, Samsung continues to be a global leader in technology, producing everything from smartphones to semiconductors. But the company's future remains uncertain as it navigates both external challenges in the global market and internal pressures stemming from its complex family dynamics and legal troubles. J.Y. Lee now free but still under a cloud of legal scrutiny, must lead Samsung into the next phase of its evolution while dealing with the legacy of his predecessors and the expectations of a South Korean society that is increasingly demanding transparency, accountability, and reform. The story of the Samsung family is far from over. It is a story of ambition, power, and struggle that continues to unfold. As the world watches, the future of Samsung and the legacy of the Lee family remain inextricably intertwined, their fate reflecting the broader challenges and aspirations of South Korea itself.